And tonight on the Daily Wrap, Planned Parenthood under fire once again, this time for wasting taxpayer dollars. Did President Obama make Russian President Vladimir Putin the most powerful leader in the world, or at least the most interesting man in the world? And the New York Post thinks so. And is Vice President Joe Biden the Democrats' best chance to keep the White House? Yep. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to a very special purple edition of the Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha, along with Rick Unger. We always coordinate, and finally, we did not one day look what happens.
Purple, man. We're not going to be blue or red tonight. We're just going to be in the middle. Purple.
Okay, that's what it is, right? Purple means you're neutral between red and blue in the whole political sphere. Okay, well, lots to talk about, including Planned Parenthood today. Did you catch the hearings today at all?
I heard a little bit at the beginning. Then I had to run out and actually go to work for a living. So, no, I didn't hear much after that.
Okay, well, we'll be discussing it at length.
No doubt.
You've seen the tapes and so on, so not the tapes, but you know what I mean. Anyway, to Mr. Unger's right, the working man. She is a CNBC contributor and a New York Times bestseller and apparently a fantasy football guru. Carol Roth is here once again. Okay, let's get right to the Daily Download. As we said, Planned Parenthood under fire again, this time from GOP lawmakers today, not only for the videos that targeted the group, but also for wasting taxpayer dollars. Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards defended her organization regarding those videos.
The outrageous accusations leveled against Planned Parenthood based on heavily doctored videos are offensive and categorically untrue. I realize, though, that the facts have never gotten in the way of these campaigns to block women from health care they need and deserve. It is unacceptable that in the 21st century, women in America are routinely harassed for accessing a legal medical procedure. Doctors who provide abortion, as well as their families, often face harassment and threats of violence. And after this recent smear campaign, it's only gotten worse.
Meanwhile, Congressman Jason Chaffetz, chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform, brought up wasteful spending by Planned Parenthood, specifically targeting Ms. Richards' salary.
What I don't want to tolerate, what I don't want to become numb to, is wasting those taxpayer dollars. And as best I can tell, we're going to have a hearing here, this is an organization that doesn't need federal subsidy. Planned Parenthood is an organization with massive salaries.
Congressman Chaffetz also brought up some non-essential spending by the pro-choice organization.
This is also an organization that seems to have exorbitant travel expenses. 2013, they spent more than $5 million in travel. First-class tickets, private chartered aircraft. Roughly, they're spending $14,000 a day on travel. That's a lot. That's money that isn't going to women's health care.
Okay. Obviously, the undercover videos produced the pro-life group, Center for Medical Progress, came under fire, but Congressman Jim Jordan had a simple question for Cecile Richards.
If the videos were selectively edited, heavily edited, if this was entrapment, if this was all untrue, then why'd you apologize?
In my opinion, it was inappropriate to have a clinical discussion of in a non-confidential, non-clinical setting.
The first video comes out July 14th. 2 days later, you go and issue an apology, and you said this: "It's unacceptable. I personally apologize for the tone and statements."
The question is funding, it seems. So the GOP is doing their best to pull funding from Planned Parenthood. Their case, the group doesn't need the funding. Carol Roth, do you agree?
Well, I think if you look at the majority of the funding, we're talking about Medicare reimbursements here. So are you going to go after every hospital and look at hospitals and go, well, you're rolling in it. You've got doctors who are making 5, 6, 7 figures. You don't need the funding either. I mean, it's access to health care. If you want to have a conversation about Medicaid and whether we should be funding Medicaid, that's one discussion. But to say that Medicaid reimbursement, somehow we don't need the funding, I just don't understand that argument.
Rick, this seemed to go in a different direction. I thought the videos would be more the focus, and instead it was, you're making too much money, you're wasting too much money. It seems the GOP took their eye off the ball on this one.
This is exactly why. Look, you've heard me say it time after time. I want a federal investigation of these tapes. I do. I want to know if any laws were broken. I absolutely want the investigation. You've also heard me say I couldn't care less about Congress's investigation, and Jason Chaffetz showed you exactly why I feel that way. You know, you go off in these witch hunts to score political points. Nobody learns anything. Tell you what, Congressman Chaffetz, why don't we start talking about how much money you spend in your job, in the body where you work, and then we'll get around to the rather meager amount of money you're talking about with Planned Parenthood. It's a stupid process he puts us through. It's all designed to get rid of a chief contributor to the Democratic Party. And again, let us have a real investigation, an independent one by the Justice Department. Pick a special prosecutor, don't care how you do it, but enough with this congressional nonsense. And Chaffetz is the king of them all.
And how do you, with a straight face, looking at the IRS and the waste of all the different government agencies, have the nerve to come out and say, I'm sorry, you're making too much money as the CEO of an organization?
How do you think Cecile Richards did today in terms of her performance? I mean, she certainly was under fire, particularly from the Republican side, obviously. And those videos are damning. They're almost impossible to defend. That's why I'm surprised that the GOP went in this direction. Now this is what we're talking about, and this is what these sort of hearings are for. Not so much for the hearings themselves, but for the news cycles they create.
I think it was a benefit to her, and I think that certainly there was a firestorm. There are a lot of issues I think to be talked about around Planned Parenthood, but she seemed to hold up very well under fire, and I think it really just served to make the congressman look like he was going off on some sideshow and lessen his credibility instead of hers.
There's a reason Cecile Richards gets paid $600,000 a year. She's very good at this, much better than Jason Chaffetz is at doing his job, which is why he gets paid considerably less. And if it were up to me, he wouldn't be getting paid at all.
To that point, it is a nonprofit organization, and I understand it's a big organization. $600,000 is a lot of money.
But it's a big organization, and I hate the whole idea of that because it's a nonprofit that you don't want to attract the best people and pay them a certain amount of money. All nonprofit means
the Red Cross?
All it is it's a tax status. It means the shareholders don't benefit. It doesn't mean anything else. I feel like people have usurped the name nonprofit to mean something that it doesn't.
Exactly. That's very well put, Carol. And you know what? I'm going to say what I always say. When you start counting other people's money, it's because you don't have a real argument to throw at them.
So what happens next?
What happens next is what I hope will happen next, which is I do want that investigation to see if there was any criminal wrongdoing. Now, we had our second state investigation come through yesterday in Missouri, and they found that there were absolutely no violations of the law in Missouri. Nothing was done wrong. The thing is that the real issues involved in this tape are potential federal violations. So it's going to take a federal investigation. It should be there. I have a funny feeling the more I'm learning about these tapes, and I did watch every single one of them, that Planned Parenthood would probably come out of this better than most people are expecting, which might answer your question, by the way, why the Congressional Committee didn't go there.
I just don't like that, and I'm sorry, Carol, let me just make one quick point. I just don't like the whole talking point around they were heavily edited. I've produced, I've been on the other side of this table in control rooms. I even made a movie one time. I can tell you that
what kind of movie?
Oh, it was a docu-comedy actually called Catch Mango, 12 Weekends at the Jersey Shore. It's tremendous. Anyway, we'll talk about it another time. Anyway, point being that when I watch them, it's all verbatim conversations. It's not like you see a sentence cut off midway.
But that doesn't mean, no.
But to say they're heavily doctored, Rick, is categorically dishonest.
Let's talk about what it's not. Let's talk about what they're talking about. I agree with you. Nobody's taking words and splicing them together. Right. But you can edit something. I've had a little experience with movies and television myself. And you can certainly put conversations in certain orders. It won't change whether they broke the law or not, but it will change your take on how you see them.
But
you see a question and you hear an answer.
Here's the bigger picture issue.
It's not like a different answer to a question.
The GOP should let this go because it is election season and it is not going to help.
So you're saying no government shutdown over Planned
Parenthood? I would say absolutely, categorically no.
Okay, so no, you wouldn't do it, and no, it won't happen.
It's not going to happen.
Okay, very good. We want to know what you think about Planned Parenthood's alleged wasteful spending. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let your voice be heard. May read some of those comments later in the show. Coming up next, did President Obama make Russian President Vladimir Putin the most powerful leader in the world? Stay tuned.